Today, I'm going to go over some best practices when using the market replay that we have learned over the years here. So, first step to take is to make sure that you have all the data downloaded that you want to test on the market replay, plus at least probably like an additional week beyond that. So, let's say, for example, going into the data series, say for example, I wanted to do some market replay back testing, for the last week of July here. I definitely want to download all the data into the NinjaTrader's database, using your regular data connection. So we're not getting into the market replay download yet. So you just want to download the regular data, plus an extra few days or an extra week, kind of depending on your indicators. So probably you'll want at least an extra week beyond that. Right. So what you want to do is first connect to your regular data feed connection, and then we're going to go into Tools, and you want to go to your Historical Data Manager, and from there we're going to download the instrument that we want to backtest. So I'm set up for oil, so I'll click oil, and I'll click tick, minute, and day. Might as well grab all three because you never know what your indicators require, or your charts, depending on what kind of chart you're backtesting on. So might as well just grab all three. It's not that much extra data. And then you want to go in here. So if I'm going to backtest the last week of July here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go another week past that. And you may have to go even further. It all depends on what indicators you're using. So some indicators, require, a couple extra days. Some indicators may require 10 extra days of data on there. So know what your indicators require, and then make sure that you download all that goes far back as necessary. For the data that your indicators require here. So, right. So if I'm going to go from July 24th, to July 28th, and if my indicator requires 10 days, then I should go at least back to the 10th, if not back to the 7th. You might want to just throw in an extra day in there just for good measure. So know how many historical days that your indicator requires on a chart in order to run properly. So, all right. Anyway, so let's just say I've got enough. So we'll download everything. So oil's not too bad. That usually downloads pretty quickly. Okay, there we are. Now we're done. Okay, so there you go. Step one: make sure you re-download all the data that you want to, plus extra data. And then next, of course, would be to, go in and download all the days of replay data that you need, as usual. All right, but I've already done that, so I'm going to skip this part for the sake of time. And then next, another thing that you want to check. Now, this is more of a time saver and a major convenience tip here. So what you want to do is go into your NinjaTrader 7 folder. Then you'll find a DB folder here, database. So this is where Ninja stores all of its chart data, all the instrument data. And then in here, inside data, We want to go inside the data folder next. And you'll see folders in here that are all have a date on them, year, month, and day. And so you want to find the days that you want to backtest on, right? So I have some days from the last week of July, the last week of July here. And you'll also notice I have a couple of days in May. So if I don't want to backtest May, then I should get rid of these in here. Because this will just kind of, what'll happen is, right, if you have some days from May and then you skip the rest of May and the rest of June, what happens is you get, when you finally do pull up the market replay here, right, you get this big gap of data in here because your slider is going to start from, as you can see here, from May 1st and go all the way to July 27th. But, I'm not wanting to test May 1st. So it just makes this slider less, sensitive here. So I can't be as precise with the slider. And also you just have this huge dead zone of no data in there, right? So it's a major convenience to just get rid of the extra days that you don't want. Of course, you can just delete it, or you could just move it somewhere else. So usually what I'll do is I'll go back to the database folder. There we go. So there's a new folder. You can name it something like whatever you want to call it. Extra market replay data. And what I can do is I can select the days that I'm not testing on. I can cut that data and then go into my other folder here that I can use to store it, and I'll just paste it in there. And then I can go back to the data folder, and there. Now I've only got the days that I want to see in my market replay. So there we go. So there's another step. All right, so now we're basically kind of ready to go here to do the market replay. So we can disconnect from the regular data feed, from your normal data feed, and let's connect to the market replay. And that's weird how So Ninja's, for some reason, is still remembering this May 1st date in there. That's because I had started up the market replay earlier, probably. So it's got some cached data in there. So if I want to kind of clean that up, let's see, I'll disconnect. And let me just shut down Ninja real quick. And now, if I connect to market replay, there we go. Now all that cached data is gone. So now we can see the market replay is only showing, the 25th to the 27th, right? The 3 days I've got downloaded here. So, right, so now it's nice and clean looking here, right? Another thing here is, again, make sure your chart has enough historical data on it for your indicators. Amazingly, that's easy to overlook. So if your indicator needs 10 days, 20 days of data, make sure you remember to put, enough days of data in here so that your indicators will operate correctly. All right, next step, next tip, I should say, minimize moving this slider. Every time you move the slider, right, Ninja has to recreate the chart and reset everything. And every time, your charts get reset and your indicators get reset, that just introduces another occasion, in another instance when the chart can get messed up, right? Or your indicators can get messed up, or your strategy can get messed up here. So most likely, right? So if you're using market replay, In this particular case, you're going to be typically using market replay with either Blackbird or Raven. So let me pull up Raven here. And I'll load a very simple BloodHound template into it just for this example. All right, I'm just going to plug some numbers in here, just so we have something to go with. All right, and here is another tip. Always check your account. Typically, your account will be left on Sim 101. Quite often, the Sim 101 is left in here, right? So the account does not change over to replay automatically, right? So if you've opened up Raven, on a chart to do, just to do some back testing on a chart, on a static chart, you're going to have the Sim 101 account in here, and when you change to market replay, the Sim 101 account is almost always left in here. So always remember to check your account and change it to replay there. And let's enable Raven. All right. Turn the auto enable button on, and we're ready to go. Yeah, let's see here. Actually, another tip here. Another tip is I should have adjusted my start time on the replay first before loading up Raven here. So let's adjust that now. I would suggest using the go to instead of using the slider. Again, using the slider just seems to introduce a lot more issues with the chart, not resetting correctly. So if you do the go to, another advantage of the go to is it allows you to be far more precise. So I can be very exact using the go to there. So I'll set it up for the market open there. All right, there we go. And we can see basically the chart was able to reset very cleanly. And now we're ready to go. Turn the auto enable back on, and you're good to go at that point. So, all right. Another tip. If you want to change the time, if you want to reset the market replay, if you want to adjust the date and time on it, always hit the pause button here. Always hit the pause button. So let me show you and see if I can show you what happens if I just grab the slider. So if I just grab the slider and say I slide it forward like that. Now, sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. So what we found is quite often if you just grab the slider while it's playing, so it's actually, you can see it's actually still playing there, it was at 500x. Quite often what happens is the strategy just doesn't load. Sometimes I've even seen indicators just drop off the chart for some reason or another. Right. So let's see if I can get this to happen here. I'll slide it backwards. Okay, well, so far so good. Kind of been lucky so far. But eventually, if I keep moving this slider around without hitting pause first, we'll eventually see something's gonna end up missing from the chart. Yeah, actually, I've already noticed something here. So you notice I've got BloodHound on the chart twice, right? So I've got BloodHound here from Raven, and I had, right, and then there's BloodHound as the indicator. We can see the buttons here on top, but we don't see the panel. If you remember earlier, there was a blank BloodHound panel because I didn't have anything loaded into it, and that panel's gone. So there you go. There's one instance where the market replay had, you know, I don't know, it had somehow put BloodHound into a funky state, and it can do that with other indicators as well. So usually I've never seen it really happen with the simple indicators like an SMA or something like that, but more sophisticated indicators, it'll do that to it. You know, like volume footprint indicators, or maybe fib zone indicators, you know, indicators that do a lot more kind of calculations, you know, maybe tick-based calculations, stuff like that. You know, I've seen the slider, just, you know, moving the slider around, tweak those indicators and just kind of mess them up, put them in a broken state. So let's try this one more time. And yeah, now you can see BloodHound's back on the chart again. So go figure. Yeah, we have this a strange gap in our data now too. Not sure why, but you know, moving the slide around, basically the chart just did not get built correctly here. But again, my point was, if you use the pause button, that significantly reduces any kind of issues with this chart getting reset. Right? So, in other words, hit the pause button first, and usually when you're moving the slide around after hitting pause, you know, things work out correctly better. All right, let's see. So let's say you're done, you know, doing your market replay test, and so we're going to disconnect from market replay, and again, you should always shut down. Use the flatten everything to shut your strategies down. That's it's always a good idea. And let's disconnect from the market replay, and let's say we go back to our live data feed, and then eventually, you know, let's say eventually you're going to get around to putting you know, your strategy back on your chart again. Again, remember to take a look at the account, right? You see it's left. It's been left on market replay, and you know, so you know, let's say if you forget to check this, right? You can go through. You can set your strategy all up. You can hit the enable button and click OK, and nothing happens. Right? So when nothing happens, it's because you're on the wrong account. So you'd be surprised how often we get emails, people saying, you know, stating that, you know, the strategy is no longer working. It suddenly stopped working, and most of the time, or actually almost all the time, it's because the account is set on the wrong account for the data feed. So you have to go in here and manually put it back to the SIM 101 account. And then we can load it back up here. There we go. And now it's all working again. So let's go back to market replay. So just a quick review again. So once you connect to your market replay, it's suggested that you go to the exact time that you want to start at first. So I'm able to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to adjust things, or the number keys, like so. So there we go. So get the market. It's best that you get the market replay all set exactly at the date and time you want to start, and then we'll put the strategy on our chart here. So right there we go. So there's Raven. Again, remember to check your account. We can see now it's left on the Sim 101. So we'll put that to replay. All right, and then we can enable it, and of course set up all your settings. And now we're good to go. All right, well, that covers it for the review of the market replay here. All right, so the question is, we'd like to create a filter, a long signal versus short signal filter based on the NYSE Tick value. So if the NYSE Tick is positive, we'd like to use that so that we only see long signals and filter out, and remove all the short signals. And if the NYSE Tick is negative, then we want to only see short signals, and we want to filter out and remove the long signals out of that. So let's get BloodHound open here and get it started. And what I'm going to do is, since I don't have NYSE Tick data, I'm going to use the NQ to do that. And I've just picked an arbitrary value here, 5,900 even, and that's going to be my value. So if the NQ is above, above 5,900, then we'll filter out the short signals, so that way we'll only have long signals if the NQ is above. And when the NQ goes below my 5,900 value, then we'll just have short signals. We'll filter out the long signals. All right, so I'm going to start working on the logic board. And let's create a new logic template. And let's see here. We're basically going to create an instrument filter here. So let me just create some dummy signals for now. Let's see here. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to use this inflection solver, and I'm going to do that on price. So let's change the input to price. So whenever the closing price of the bar reverses, we'll get a signal here, right? So on every reversal bar, there we go, we've got a signal here. So we just have a bunch of dummy signals to work with. And so next we'll create the filter here. So let's see, let's go over to the solvers tab. And what we're going to add is another chart here. So we need to get some chart data from the NQ. So, however, this is where you would put the NYSE Nick data in here. Right? So you can set your instrument to whatever instrument you want. So it could be the NYSE Nick, for example. So since I don't have the NYSE Nick, I'll have to use the NQ data here. So whatever instrument you want to use as your filter, just plug that in there. And let's see, I'm gonna use let's see here. Actually, just so that things match up better, It's you get weird behavior when you mix different bar types, right? So you can see I have a 5 range on my oil chart with BloodHound, and then I've got and then my NQ is a 5-minute chart here. So let's see, I'm going to switch them both to a 5-minute chart here, just so that things are correlated. All right. So there we go. So I created a NQ 5-minute chart, an extra time, basically an extra data feed, an extra time frame there. And let me get my 2 charts synchronized. So 5-minute, and we'll put this on a 5-minute. There we go. All right. Okay, so now my default time frame, right? That's a 5-minute chart on oil, and then I've got a 5-minute chart for whatever instrument I want to use as my filter. And so now let's go back over to the logic board, and what we're going to grab is, you'll see now under the solver nodes, you'll see we have a default time frame. So I can create right, a new solver, and it'll operate on my oil chart here, on the 5-minute oil chart, or I can create a new solver that's going to operate on my NQ 5-minute chart. And what I want is a threshold solver. So the actual question wants to know whether the NYSE Tick is positive or negative. So that would be above 0 or below 0. So we'd want to use the threshold solver here. Let's see, so this would be our filter, and if we zoom in here, right, you can see this solver, right, has a little notation on top of it telling us what chart and or time frame that it's operating on. So there we go. And what we want to check is just price. So we want to set the type to price, right? So if this was operating on the NYSE Tick, right, the NYSE Tick data is considered the price data for that instrument, right? So NinjaTrader would see the NYSE Tick just as an instrument. It's not a tradable instrument, but it's instrument data. And so the way you get instrument data is you look at the price. And you look at the closing price. So all you need to do is just change your type to price, and you're good to go. And that would look at the NYSE Tick data. So, and then the next thing is we need to set our outputs out. So we want greater than to be set to 1, right? So we want a long output whenever the NYSE Tick data is greater than 0. Right, so long output when greater than A or greater than 0. And then if the NYSE Tick data is negative, then that would be less than E here, right? Remember, E is set to 0, so less than 0, set that to 1, like so. So if we take a look at this, oh, hold on. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Hold on a sec. I'm mixing and matching here. So leaving the thresholds at 0, would be the correct thing to do. If you're using this on the NYSE Tick, right? But remember, I don't have NYSE Tick data, so I'm going to have to use the NQ, and So what I'll do is I'll actually make a copy of this. And this will be my NQ filter, just to show how it's going to work. All right. And so since I have to use the NQ, that's going to be 5,900 is going to be my threshold value here. Here we go. So you can see here. So I'm going to get a long output whenever the NQ data is greater than 5,900, or if the NQ data is less than 5,900. A short output there. All right, so let's get that new solver on here. So if I go to existing nodes, and if I go to my NQ, go to the NQ chart there, there's that new NQ filter I just made. And let's actually take a look at that. Okay. There we go. So now I can see whenever the NQ is above 5,900, above 5,900, right? So there we go. So we're getting long output whenever the NQ is above 5,900, or when it's below 5,900 there. Right. So now let's wrap this kind of up. One more step to do here. So this would be, actually, let me rename this here actually. All right, there's our, so this is the solver kind of set up for the NYSE Tick as a NYSE Tick filter. There. We'll just name that appropriately. And you'd also have to go in here and change this chart instrument appropriately as well. But so let's throw that off to the side. Let's throw that down here. So I've got a node here that's going to represent the trade signal logic, the whole system. And what we'll do is take one last AND node, connect that in, like so. So you take your trade signals, feed it into an AND node, take your filter, plug it into the AND node, and now we can see we have filtered signals now. All right, there we go. So yeah, I think the rest of the time, yeah, it looks like the NQ is above that 5,900. Yeah, so we're not going to get too many short signals here. There we go. Now, finally, we get a few. Okay, yes. So let's see. So Bob you would actually like to detect when the NYSE Tick data is up above 1,000 or below 1,000. Yeah, positive one above positive 1,000 or below negative 1,000. I believe. And so yeah, so Bob, what you do, right? So what you could do for that. Yeah, so if you wanted to check, greater threshold values instead of just above or below 0, then like if you wanted to check to see if the NYSE is above 1,000, then yeah, you just put 1,000 in there, put 1,000 in there, you would leave C at 0, and then D put negative 1,000 and negative 1,000, like so. And there, if we look at the description now, so now, right, we're filtering long outputs when greater than 1,000, or if less than negative 1,000, like so, yeah. So whatever kind of thresholds you're looking for, just do it something like that. So, and so what this would do is, if the NYSE Tick, if it's in between 1,000 and negative 1,000, if it's somewhere in the middle, then you would get no signal, right? So it would prevent any signals between 1,000 and negative 1,000. So you'd only get signals above 1,000 or below negative 1,000. That's what you'd do. All right, guys, I guess with that, we'll wrap this up here. So again, if you guys would like this today's BloodHound file, you guys should know what to do by now. Just send us an email here, and Mike or Keith will email today's BloodHound file back to you. All right. So, yeah. All right, guys. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and all right. Hopefully, I'll see you guys tomorrow in the Blackbird workshop. Otherwise, if I don't see you tomorrow, then have a good weekend and keep those questions coming, and I'll see you next week. All right. Bye, gentlemen.